Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep the Mining Podcast. And today's guest is Marc Sale, who's the CEO of First Class Metals, a junior miner focused on gold and critical exploration in Ontario, Canada. They're dedicated to unlocking the potential of untapped resources, providing innovative solution to the supply shortage and making a lasting impact in the mining industry. A geologist by background and a competent person for JORC and NI-43 101, Marc is an experienced explorer working in exploration and development across Africa, the Americas, Europe and Australasia during his career. He's going to give us an overview of First Class Metals, what they've been up to, talk about a recent partnership that they've secured, and overall overview of the current exploration market. Before we start the podcast, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Hawcroft, who are leaders in property risk management in the mining industry since 1992. They offer insurance risk surveys, construction risks reviews, and asset critical assessments, and a lot more. They work across 600 sites globally, and they support mining, processing, smelting, power, refinery, ports and rail operations. So if you're looking for property or insurance risk management services, then visit their website at www.hawcroft.com. All the details are in the show notes. Marc, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Rob. It's nice to be here with you.
Yeah, and yourself. So, I wonder if you just tell us a little bit about your career. And obviously, we were just speaking offline before we started recording. I just wonder if you just tell us a little bit about your career. As you mentioned to me, you're a geologist in your previous life or past life. So I just wonder if you can just give us an overview, obviously of your career. You started off as a geologist, but you've moved more into a corporate position over the last few decades. So I just wonder if you can just give our audience a little bit of a background about yourself.
Certainly, yes. Well, I graduated, as you said, as a geologist from University of Western Australia way back in the halcyon years of the early 80s. And I worked in Australia as an exploration geologist for many years, and then moved offshore into other areas, Papua New Guinea, Africa, as an exploration geologist. And then I guess I got, shall we say, the real break in the late 90s when I headed down to Argentina and became a project manager on the Esquel project at the time, which ended up, when we sold it to Meridian, just shy of 4 million ounces. So that was really the stepping stone for me. I went from a geologist into management. I had my first technical director role in 98, 99, I think it was. So it's been a strange career in that way. Now I'm the CEO of First Class Metals. I've had a number of technical director roles for companies listed both on the London Stock Exchange, Canadian Stock Exchange, and elsewhere through my career. But I think I won't say I bring a unique mindset and experience to the table, but I can go out into the field, as I do often, on our projects in Ontario. I think I was out there 8 times last year in Canada, and I can rough it, shall we say, with the geologist and understand what they're saying, and then I can come back to Toronto, put on a jacket and tie, and stand there in a boardroom or in front of investors or interested personnel and talk the talk on a corporate level with them. So that, as I say, it's not unique. There's other people I know out there who have done the same thing, sort of graduated from the pure geology into the C-suite environment. But I think it's a very important aspect to be able to understand the corporate side, the budgets, the finance, raising money, presenting things to investors, but also understanding what's going on in the ground and also appreciating what's going on in the ground. I mean, those guys out there, they work hard, and even under the softened current day conditions compared to the 80s, it's still a hard life being a geologist. And it's a vocation. It's like being a nurse or a doctor. You do it because you're passionate about it, not always for the money. So yes, geologist originally, Australia, educated, shall we say, worldwide experience across all the continents except Antarctica. I flew across it, but I don't think that counts. So yeah, a varied career, but now very firmly in the corporate directorial managerial role.
Obviously, thanks for the introduction. And you mentioned, obviously, like you've been involved, you were originally a geologist, and you have a passion for it. So I suppose what does keep you excited and motivated to keep exploring, as your career's developed?
I wouldn't want it to sound like an egotistical thing, but I would really like to find one more decent, by that, let's say, multi-million ounce gold deposit. I've been very fortunate in my career in that I've been associated with 3 multi-million ounce discoveries. The first one was in Australia, Mount Gibson, which initially was a laterite open cut and went into an underground hard rock mine. And then the Esquel Gold project, as I alluded to, was a multi-million ounce one. And then with Patagonia Gold, we discovered the Cose and the Capoeste, which again was multi-million ounce. So I'd really like to find another one. I know they say 3's a trend, and I've got, shall I say, teamwork discovery of one in Australia and a couple in the Argentine. But I'd like to, let's say, 3 points in the globe. Let's extend that up to Canada now. And the team we have in Canada with Emerald Geological Services, head by Bruce McLaughlin, I mean, they're an incredible bunch of people. Bruce himself has a swathe of technical as well as commercial discoveries under his belt. So working with them is a pleasure. They're experienced, they're dedicated. So yeah, that's what keeps me going. Is that, I guess, let's put it another way, the challenge. Let's find another one, and hopefully the first class shareholders will benefit greatly from that.
Yeah. So I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about First Class Metals and just give us an overview of the company and what the main goals are.
Well, it's a relatively new company, shall we say. It listed on the London Stock Exchange, and a lot of people say, why London, not Canada, when you're focused in Canada? Listed on the London Stock Exchange July 22, and we had a little bit of work that year, but 23, 24, so 2 years we've had good field seasons. Last year was a little bit light compared to the year before because of funding. However, last year we really pushed the boundaries back on our 2, shall we say, flagship claims of North Hemlo and Sunbeam. But First Class, it was developed by 2 people out of the UK, founders, James Knowles, who's the executive chairman. He's still with First Class. And they amassed this portfolio initially in the Hemlo area of Ontario. And they reached this critical point where they had this land, but with all due respect to James, didn't have the technical ability to take it any further than that. And I knew James from a mutual contact, and he approached me and said, look, Mark, we really need a little bit of technical input here. Let's meet up and discuss it. So we did, and I looked at their properties. And what impressed me about them, Rob, was the lack of exploration on them. There was some showings on them, so you had a slight indication that there might be something of merit. It wasn't just moose pasture, but the important aspects for me was what I've called the nearology and the vector. In other words, close to their properties, if not adjacent to their properties, were properties of merit with, I won't say discoveries, but interesting showings. And either the geological, the geophysical, or the geochemical vectors from those showings indicated there was a strong possibility that they could extend onto the first class property. So I saw an opportunity where they were exploration poor, but potentially potential rich. So I really liked it. So I said, yeah, James, I'm up. Let's do it. So we then went off on some IPO, pre-IPO funding actually, and a gentleman who has followed me from several companies now in my history, he put in a swag of money pre-IPO, which allowed us to do some work in that first year. And we've just built on from it since then. The model, the business model, shall we say, for first class isn't a new one. It's, people call it the project incubator or generator model or whatever. I'm not really keen on either of those terms, but they suffice. And that is, we've picked up ground. Well, we had ground for the original IPO. We've picked up ground since the IPO, and we've developed those. In other words, we've potentially de-risked them a little bit from just greenfields to something that has some positive values on. And then we're building those up to a point whereby we can either joint venture or sell them. And in that regard, one of our properties, West Pickle Lake, which has had some stellar nickel and copper results on it, is joint ventured to GT Resources, used to be Palladium One. And two of our other properties that we had at IPO, McKellar and Enable, we sold last year to the 79th Group, which is a story that we'll come on to soon, I've got no doubt. So our model is working, joint venture or sell. And in the meantime, we've picked up other properties like the Zigzag hard rock lithium, which, okay, lithium isn't the flavour of the month at the moment, but there's signs it will come back. And it's a nice little property nestled between green technology and battery age metals. So it's in a great location as far as other players are concerned, and it has some very good drill results. It's the only property we've actually drilled, and it was a very successful drill program. So, as I say, first class, early stage in the exploration. We've only really got two field seasons under our belt, and one of those, as I say, was probably we didn't go at it as hard as we'd like to. I mean, I think there's this misunderstanding about exploration companies. Of course, we're always going out for funding because we want to do more. We take a good rock chip sample. What do we want to do? We want to take more rock chip samples. That takes money. Those rock chip samples come up with great results. What do we want to? We want to trench it. That takes money. The trenching looks good. What do you want to do then? You want to drill it. That takes money. I mean, I've been around enough companies to realize that the one thing that never makes money is exploration. And as soon as the exploration arm finds something, it goes into development. So they never get any credit for anything that they find. And they're always, oh, the exploration is a drain. They always take money. They always take money. Well, hold on, guys. The reason you've got production out of that mine is because the exploration side of things found something. Now, okay, the counter to that would be, well, what's the statistics of each decent grab sample turning into a mine? They're low. Let's be honest. And if it was that easy, everyone would find one. But that's why the sensible punters put their money not just necessarily on a property that looks as if it's got merit, but also who's the management? Are they investment savvy? Who's the technical backing? Have they got experience? Can they deliver? Have they delivered? So first class rolls a lot of those things into that requirement, that prerequisite. And with what's happening, this significant transaction with the 79th Group, I believe it's going to put us head and shoulders above some of our peers.
How does First Class Metals approach sustainability and environmental responsibility in its operations?
We approach them very seriously, Rob. Apart from the challenge of exploration, the social responsibility is something that's very close to my heart, shall we say. Having worked in Australia and obviously had contact with the Aborigines, the indigenous people in Australia, then spent quite a while in Papua New Guinea, again, a lot of local indigenous people interface, South America in the Argentine, the local landowners, not so much the indigenous people in the Argentine and Patagonia, but certainly the local landowners, not foreign landowners, as well as different parts of Africa. It's something that's important with me, though I have to say one of the hardest billets I had was in Sardinia, where there the landowners were equally as passionate, but they might only own 2 fields. So if you're looking at sort of large-scale exploration, you were dealing with a lot of landowners. So that part of it is really important for me, and I spend a lot of the company's time talking to the Indigenous people in Ontario, meeting up with them. I go to their powwows, I've been to their reservations, I meet them. Quite often I meet them to tell them I haven't got anything to say to them, but that's all part of dealing with maintaining the relationship, because they want to know what's going on. You're on their land. They want to know, even if you're not doing anything, they still want to know that you're not doing anything, because you're not there. And when are you going to come and do something? And when you do, how are you going to do it? So openness, transparency, honesty, reliability are all these things that are important in dealing with the First Nations. You used another word which I don't actually agree with, if I'm honest. That's sustainability. I've yet to hear an acceptable to me explanation of sustainable mining. I mean, mining is mining a finite reserve, so it can't be sustainable. I think better off is responsible exploration, responsible mining, ecologically aware exploration, those sorts of things. And we take all of those seriously. I mean, we've contracted a company in Ontario, and they provided us with guidelines for how our team, our geologists, our field people should do things. When we've been issued with exploration permits, which allows us to do stripping and clearing and trenching and drilling, there's quite strong, stringent ecological responsibilities associated with those. And also, of course, the First Nations have the opportunity to put in, shall we say, their 2 pennies worth as to how they feel about how we should be deporting ourselves environmentally, on a conservation, ecological basis. So it is an important aspect for me, apart from the fact it's an important aspect as far as the regulations are concerned and our social conscience.
You mentioned obviously partnerships and collaborations in obviously your business model. I just wonder if you can share some exciting projects or new developments that First Class Metals are currently working on in Canada.
I think the 2, as I said earlier, the 2 important, the 2 flagship projects we have are both district scale plays. I mean, they're both one's over 70, one's almost 100 square kilometres. That's North Hemlo and Sunbeam. North Hemlo was our flagship property for our IPO, our listing document. It's got a variety of targets on that, and I guess that's one of the reasons why it's exciting. And we have our new discovery on that, the Dead Otter Trend, which is next to the Dead Otter Lake. And I have to say that we didn't choose the name. There is a showing on there called the Dead Otter Showing, which is one of the few showings on the property, which is what I said earlier on, is that it's got potential, but it's underexplored. So we've looked at the Dead Otter Showing. We've extended that structure for over 3 kilometres. The Dead Otter Showing reports 3.1 grams and almost 0.5% of molybdenum. 3.7 kilometres away, along that trend, there's a 19.6 grammer. And there's various other up to, well, we've got 2-3 grams in between. Around the 19 grammer, there's a 13 grammer. And we've got pathfinder elements, molybdenum, antimony, along that trend. So the trend itself is, I would call it discontinuous, but that's because there's not continuous outcrop. I mean, we are talking about a heavily forested area in northwestern Ontario, but structurally it seems to be continuous. Certainly on some of the geophysics that we have, it's continuous. So we're developing that, which is exciting because it's a new discovery. I mean, that 19-gram grab sample, I think that is probably, no one's contested me yet, probably the highest grab sample that we've seen on the North Limb. The Barrick Hemlo mine, 23 million ounces past and present reserves production, is on the South Limb, and North Hemlo block of ours is on the North Limb. Also on the North Hemlo block is what we believe very strongly, and other people do, it's not just our belief, is the extension of the Fairservice Dotted Lake polymetallic and gold structure that extends onto our property, as I say. And then further north again, as I mentioned earlier on, is the Pesim 2 property, which is currently under joint venture to GT Resources, which has the nickel copper on. And further north again is the property that we optioned off on gold. And that is vastly underexplored. But as part of the due diligence, we took lake sediment samples, and one of them was 103 ppb, which is extremely high for a lake sediment. So that property has 4 sensible targets on it. And we've only had 2 field seasons, which we've predominantly focused on the dead otter trend. Okay, GT Resources did the work on West Pickle Lake. So it's an exciting project, North Hemlo, and has a lot of potential to produce more newsworthy results, shall we say. Sunbeam, which is further west near Adakokin, and as the crow flies, I think 10 kilometres from Agnico Eagle's Hammond Reef, 3.3 million ounces. It's got 3 structures on it, and they're at least 10, possibly 15 kilometres long. Each one of those 3 structures, subparallel, has historic development on it. The biggest one was the Sunbeam gold mine, which stopped production in 1905. But in its last year, it's believed it produced a head grade of almost half an ounce. Stopped production, we think, because of a fire. And at the time, it was quite remote, and getting replacement equipment there was just too tough. But anyway, 3 structures marching across this 70 square kilometre property, each one of them mineralized, each one of them historic production on it. And again, underexplored. It was drilled probably 10 years ago now by Newinsko, who had 93 grams over half metre. That's not too shabby, and didn't have the finances to follow it up. We've optioned it from them. We've done some stripping around Roy and Pettigrew. That's 2 of the other named structures. And again, we've produced grab sample or channel samples of 18 grams from both of those locations. And some of the historic drilling at Roy and Pettigrew was also very encouraging, multi-gram over multi-meters. So we're developing Sunbeam as a drill target. We could probably go out and drill it tomorrow if we had to, or if we wanted to, but I'd like to do some more work on it so we understand the structure better, so that we can make sure that it's a successful maiden drill program. So those are our 2 main exploration targets at the moment. But I think it's important to re-mention Zigzag, the hard rock lithium target, which again has multi-meter plus 1% lithium values and associated gallium, niobium and cesium on it. And then, of course, there's the new addition to the portfolio last year, the Kerrs Gold Project, which is over in Timmins, which is an amazingly endowed gold camp, the Timmins camp. It's been producing gold for over 100 years. And the Kerrs Gold Project, that has a compliant 43101 compliant resource of just shy of 300 plus thousand ounces of gold. So that's an exciting project for us as well. We've just recently completed low-level heliborne magnetic survey over that, and it's currently with PGW in Toronto being interpreted. So those are 4 exciting projects, and that doesn't even mention ESSA, which has a robust shear, 4 kilometres long going through it, with very good, as I say, a robust gold and trace element anomaly on it. So yes, a lot of projects that we're advancing. Maybe I shouldn't call them projects because my definition of a project is something that you've drilled. Some has been drilled historically, I guess. But yeah, I'm excited about this year's exploration program, and even more excited because, as again, I'll allude to the strategic partnership with the 79th Group.
Following on from that, what do you expect to achieve from the 79th Resources deal, and when will the transaction materialise?
Well, I think we have to be careful to be, sorry to be pedantic, but it's the 79th Group that we're dealing with, not 79th Resources. 79th Resources is their private resource arm, which has properties in Guinea, and we also sold 2 of our properties in Ontario too. But it's the 79th Group that we're doing the strategic partnership with. And what will happen when it concludes in April, subject to the GM on the 21st of February, so only 10 days away, being approved by the shareholders, it will mean that 79th Group holds 51% of First Class Metals. And that's important in as much as they will then be funding 51% of any funding needs we require going forward, which is, I think, in these current markets, that's a phenomenal situation to be in. That if you go out to the market, you say, hey guys, we've already got a check for 51%. I'm just asking you to make up the difference. Oh, and by the way, that 51% isn't at a discount. So ultimately, it brings a lot of security as far as funding going future. But what does it do for this year? It means that this year, when the transaction concludes, subject to shareholder approval on the 24th, it means that we will be funded for the exploration we intend to do this year. However, the caveat I would put on that, as I said earlier on, you take a good grab sample, you want to take more, it costs money. You do some stripping, it's positive, you want to do more, etc., etc. So, but yes, that's why I'm so excited about this exploration season. And actually, as an aside, Rob, the exploration season started. We've got people out there on the ice as we talk, working. We've got a winter program this year, which we didn't do last year. But this year we've got guys out there on the ice taking lake sediment samples, a VLF program. So the excitement is already there, the lead up to the field season once the snow clears. But it's a field season that is already funded to an extent, with the caveat I said earlier on, funded by the 79th Group, the association that we are developing with them. So it's looking good going forward. It really is. I mean, it's to be in a situation where you've got some really potentially rich projects and the money to actually explore them.
Can you discuss the challenges and opportunities in the mining industry? I suppose particularly in relation to geopolitical risks and market for volatility, obviously in 2025. Obviously, there's a lot of challenges ahead within the mining industry. I just wonder if you can comment on that.
I think there are, and I don't wish ill of my peers, but I think in these challenging markets that we are going to see companies either raising money just to keep the lights on or doing virtually no exploration work so they can conserve what cash they have to keep the lights on and hoping for better times. There are some signs of things improving. I mean, it's just such a disconnect that we've got a gold price almost touching 3,000 an ounce, and the small cap explorers can't find the funds for exploration. So I think in these markets, it's going to be really tough for some of our peers. That in some ways is an opportunity for First Class, because it means that we can negotiate on properties at, shall we say, bargain basement prices. And as I said earlier, the situation with the 79th Group gives us that buffer, which is, it means that we can be out there on the acquisition path as opposed to the safeguarding what cash is available path. So I know you asked a general question, but I'm trying to make that general question give an example of first class and its environs. But apart from that, the challenging, apart from funding, which is an obvious challenge, because as I said earlier, exploration companies, and even more so the successful exploration companies, are always looking for money in order that they can develop on that success. But one of the challenges, without doubt, as I said earlier on, is achieving exploration permits because of the regulations and because of the requirement to interface with the First Nations. And I can totally understand, we're on their ancestral land. So of course they need to have a say in it. And of course they need to have the assurance that it's not going to be a rape and pillage like it was in bygone eras where nobody answered to anything, whatever they did. So that is challenging. I mean, I know the Ontario government has said that they will bring the permitting time down from discovery to production to less than what I think the average is 17 years at the moment, which is horrendous when you think about it, really. But I think the main challenges at the moment are funding, which isn't a challenge for us, and also getting government approval. I'll encompass the bureaucracy all in one. That is a challenge. But I have to say, Rob, that in our first 18 months of listing, we were awarded 6 exploration permits, 6 different properties. And I think that is testimony to the work that Kevin, who assists me or supports me, leads me on the First Nation liaison, and the work we've done and the trust we've gained with the First Nation. It is challenging out there, but as I said, open, honesty, transparency, communication is what gets you across that line.
And lastly, what's the outlook for first class metals over the sort of short to medium term? And is there anything else that you'd like to add and inform our audience on?
I think pulling together what I've said over the last, how long we've been talking, I think I've done most of the talking, apologise for that. But pulling it all together, I think the outlook for first class is potentially very good. And I caveat the potentially because we are dealing with exploration. And we know all the rules of thumb. Don't fall in love with the project. You know, the rotary truth machine, the drilling will tell you what it is. But as I've said, and hopefully the point I've got across is that, yes, we've got 2 stellar properties, but we've also got other properties that are equally interesting, if not on the same scale. And we're looking to acquire more properties in order that we can continue this conveyor belt ideology of exploration, identify something, assess it, value add by de-risking it, progress it to drilling, and then reach a point that you can move it on through joint venture. So somebody else is spending the money to develop it or possibly sell it. In either case, retain what we call an NSR, net spell to return. So if that property does go out of your control, out of your portfolio, and it is a success going forward, the shareholders are still benefiting from it. So short term, we've got a lot of exploration ahead of us. Longer term, shall we say, in the next 5 years, I think developing these properties and developing new properties that we acquire with the backing, with the allegiance with 79th Resources, 79th Group. Sorry, you've got me doing it now. Is it's really exciting, really exciting. I'm very proud to be part of First Class, very proud to be associated with the 79th Group and what I think the passionate partnership between us can build.
Mark, really appreciate your time. Thank you for obviously sharing your journey, telling us about First Class Metals, obviously the new joint venture with 79th Group. And I can see you're passionate about moving these projects forward, and wish you well for the remainder of 2025. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they obviously want to follow the story, how can they go about doing that? What social media platform channels are you on?
There's a couple of ways they can do it, Rob. My email address is on the footer of all the press releases we've put out. It's on the corporate presentation on the website, and also through Investor Hub, they have an opportunity to ask questions direct to James and myself. So either Investor Hub on the website, email on the website. It's probably my phone number's there also, but I get a lot of cold calls, so I tend to shield that, shall we say, from unknown numbers. But more than happy to answer questions on the Investor Hub. And if somebody wants to write me an email, and then we could set up a Zoom call as a result of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And all those are going to be, all those details are going to be in our show notes accompanying this podcast. So, well, wish you all the best for the year. Perhaps you want to come on later in the year or beginning part of next year and give us an update on how First Class Metals are going. More than welcome to come back on.
That would be great. And maybe I'll come back on with Dave Webster of 79th Group.
Yeah.
I believe you interviewed him in the distant past.
Yeah, have done. I can't remember if we've done 1 or 2 episodes, but we have in the past. Yeah, more than welcome to both come on at the same time and obviously showcase the partnership and how it's developing. So I will be in contact.
Okay, great. Rob, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for listening to me.
Yeah, no, thank you as well. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing these, obviously, episodes far and wide. Obviously, Mark's given a good count of First Class Metals and what they're doing and the importance of, obviously, joint venture partnerships, which they have done with 79th Group. So thank you for listening. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.